And now, live from Gregory Boxing Gym in Des Plaines, Illinois, The Brand with Jason Brandstetter.
Welcome to The Brand. My co-host today, Joe Phalen, the Director of Business Development at Gregory Boxing. He's going to talk to us about Masters Boxing. And our guest on the show today, Michael Kenny. Michael Kenny won the Masters Boxing Chicago Golden Gloves in 2019. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Joe, if you want to talk to us a little bit about the Masters Boxing program, kind of tell
Of
people
course.
what that's all about.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Jason. Co-host, that's like navigator.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see. So right out of the USA Boxing rule book, Masters Boxing is anybody over the age of 35. All right. Now it gets a little technical. 41 and above is categorized, men and women are categorized as Masters Boxing. From 35 to 40, it can be two designations, depending on how many fights you've had. So if you had an amateur career, they may keep you as an elite boxer until the age of 40. So our master's program and the way that we feel about it is that there isn't really a program that exists around Chicagoland specific for old people in boxing. Not old, you know.
Master's a nice way of saying you're old.
I'm 51, so
Yeah.
I'm just calling it like it is.
Yeah, all right.
So we opened Lombard in November, and one of the reasons we opened it in the vision is to have a master's program. So this coming Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 p.m., we're going to have a camp that'll start. So it's Tuesday, Thursday, 7:30 p.m., and then Saturdays at 9 a.m. in our Lombard location. You can check us out on the web at www.gregoryboxing.com/DuPage. All right, you can find us right through our website. For information about Masters Boxing and something you want to write down, usamastersboxing.com, and they'll explain all the rules. You can go into all the technical associations around if you want more information around USA, around Masters Boxing. Of course, we have an expert here with us, Mike Kenny. But anyway, so a couple things that we look forward to is having the camp start and then tournaments that we can go on. There's places all over the country that have huge tournaments for Masters Boxing. Vegas, New York, Texas, all over the place that we can go and do trips and really get a good thing going in Chicagoland for a Masters program.
There's definitely a lot of Masters boxers in Chicago. You see them at all the tournaments and stuff like that, but there's not really a specific program at any of these gyms.
You know, for me, and Mike can speak to that, but I was put in, my first sparring was with guys that were half my age, get ready for the match that I was in. So, which is fine, but at this point, and the work that I'm doing personally in the ring, I'd rather be with somebody in my own age category and working technique and lighter than going heavy. It's that simple. I don't need to get punched any more hard than that.
Mike, I'd like to ask you a little bit if you can kind of talk about your experience.
Sure. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for having me on the show. And when you first asked me, I just figured the homeless guy outside was busy tonight to have Mike Kenny on the show. But that's all right. I pushed Joe Rogan to next week, so here I am.
That's right.
Do you want me to talk about boxing?
Talk about this stage of your life right now. What does your family and stuff think? Like you did the glove, you won the gloves in 2019. Was there a support system there, or people saying, "Man, you're crazy. You're too old to be"?
Some people said that. People at work sometimes don't understand, but I think my friends, family, they're all real supportive. My girlfriend, she was at every boxing match I've had, and overall, it's been real supportive. And to me, it's a fountain of youth, right? I don't know if you knew this about me, but I was pretty good shape, high school, played sports, and I gained 10 to 15 pounds a year for about 10 years, to the point where I was at 350 pounds. And I just got sick of starting my diet next week. I wanted to get back in form, and I just dedicated myself. And after about a year of working out, I was like, I'm not learning how to do anything except work out. And then I got into martial arts at Shidokan in Arlington Heights with Matsumoto, and I was doing that. I'm like, you know what? I'm learning skills, and this is taking my intensity to the next level, and I like this. Then I moved to the city for a while, and I went to CFC over there, also a Shidokan gym, and that's where I met Wayne. And then fast forward maybe 5 or 6 years, I've been training in different martial arts schools, and I hear you guys are opening this gym. And I said, first of all, I want to insure it. Secondly, I want to be your first student. And I believe I am. Is that right? I think you told me that. I was your first,
our very first member.
Our very first member. And that's when I kind of got into boxing exclusively. And I didn't go into it thinking I'm this badass or anything. Like, start sparring. I'm like, all right, you know, a little more athletic than I thought I was. I'm not made of glass. You start sparring and you start messing around a little bit. People around you are competing. You're like, all right, I'll do a show. And then, you know, I had some wins and losses, you know, but every time you learn, and you learn how important it is to be in great shape. And, you know, I'd say I reached my peak training here. That doesn't mean in my 20s. I don't know what my real peak was, right? But later in life, I feel like I can do everything I could do 10 years ago, definitely. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but I could keep talking for hours. You know,
No, you answered my question.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a couple of things you say, Mike.
Yeah.
And, you know, I agree. This type of exercise has been the fountain of youth for me. I came in when I met you in late 2017, right when this gym opened. I was about 210.
Okay.
And over the course of 6 months, I lost 30 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
Before that fight, I was like,
I remember you
178.
training for it. Yeah.
You were the first guy I sparred. You know, I got memories of you throwing that overhand cross and catching on top of the head. And, you know, I remember that for about a week. Felt good, but it taught me a lot about
I've
boxing
been on the receiving end.
keeping
of
my
things
guard
like
up,
that too.
right?
Yeah.
But you're a guy that's helped me a ton in my journey as far as sparring and competing. It's been awesome. But yeah, I think, you know, what the exercise does for you physically is one thing, and then mentally, for me, I can't speak for the rest of you guys, but the confidence I get, and it's not walking down the street being cocky.
Right.
It's just a feeling that I could handle myself if need be. Right?
Oh, yeah,
And
of course.
it's a good thing.
Boxing this is what I think people call martial arts, and they call boxing. Boxing is a martial art, and a very practical, effective one. And that's why every MMA athlete trains boxing, right? It's a great self-defense tool. Bottom line, if you can use your fists, you're pretty dangerous, right? If you can box and wrestle, you got pretty much 90% of the ground covered, right? So I get what you're saying with that confidence. And I mean, most people, they get hit in the face once, just right there, and they freeze. They can't breathe. They can't anything. You know, what did Wayne say to me once? He said, "Getting punched in the face is like whiskey. You build a tolerance."
Very true.
How challenging is training now at this age? Like, obviously when you're younger, you don't have to go to work every day, you don't have responsibilities, but you know, as a master's, right, you're older, you have responsibilities, family. How much more difficult is it now to train? Are you able to get your training in? It's got to be, you know, you got to have a lot more discipline, I would guess.
Yeah, discipline's a huge part of it, but discipline's something we all want. And I sit on my ass for a living, right? You're police, you're at least out and about, and I think it's so important. So you call it discipline, but it's something you should be doing anyway. And a lot of times, you know, when you're fighting or something like that, you've got to do some interval sprints. You got to get your conditioning in to be in the gym at night. That's the same amount of time you might be in the gym just sitting there on an elliptical. It's what kind of work do you want to put in? You know, it's the same time investment, so you can do it. And I find in my profession at least, there's a big correlation. When I'm training and I'm focused and I don't drink and I don't do all those things, there's a correlation between my success at work. I don't know if it's subconscious or what it is. When you're living a disciplined life, I just feel like everything's better and easier. You know, we would need somebody smarter than me to analyze that, but I think at least that's my experience.
Would you say that's the hardest part for you? Is that
it's difficult the first week or two, but once you get in a groove, I think it's like week 1 is harder than week 4. You know, like definitely. You build a habit, and you begin to execute, and you begin to feel like crap if you didn't. You know, I feel guilt if I don't get my workout in when I'm supposed to, or if I ate something. And I'll tell you that what is getting harder is the diet. Like, eating the way I do, I used to be hover around 200, and now I'm like 230. So as I get older, I think the challenging part is not just the workouts, but eating properly becomes more of a challenge as you get older as a masters. And that's why a lot of guys just end up saying, screw it, I'm just going to be a super heavyweight. I don't even care anymore. Where if they were 25, they'd be fighting like 165 pounds, you know, or something like that.
I think with the cardio we're doing, you want to eat clean, right? You want to hydrate, you want to get rest. One thing I love about this exercise, if you start and you're a beginner, you're not coming in and lifting weights and doing things that are going to tear your muscles up. It has a lot to do with, you know, your own resistance, right? We do, you know, the calisthenics, we do push-ups, sit-ups, that kind of thing, and then, you know, the punching part is really up to the person and how they're throwing it, right? So the beginning, that first month, what I find is people aren't terribly sore, and if they give it those, you know, 2 to 3 times a week, they're going to lose weight, their balance is going to come back, and then there's that interest in the art. You know, I want to learn more about how to move, how to strike, how to protect myself. There's so many things that come into play, but I think, you know, what was the hardest for you? You've taken time off, you know, competed, won Golden Gloves, and taken time off. What's the hardest in that first month of coming back in to training as someone that was interested in starting Masters boxing?
Well, it's frustrating. I mean, you're still good, whatever. You don't lose everything, but the rust and just getting back to where you were with your reflexes and your timing. And the hardest part about coming back to an intense sport is the shit. It just sucks. Everything sucks when you're out of shape. It just sucks. You can't breathe. You're you know. So the hardest part is just building up that conditioning again, and it's frustrating mentally because your skills have diminished. So you've got to work just to get back where you were, and then to surpass it.
Right.
You know. So,
right. Yeah, that's part of it.
And that's I think when people get frustrated and they might just say screw it. You know, like I know I've been there. So that's definitely the hardest part. You had to be in shape to, especially compete in any fight sport. You have to be in shape.
I look at the timing around sparring, you know, and whether you do it at all, or whether it's just training and getting into a good routine and you know, losing weight and getting fit and all that, or you transfer into the sparring. We've got a guest here that just walked in. Jason, you want to introduce our friend here?
Holt McCallany. That's how I say that, right? Yeah. All right, good. Thanks for joining us today. The reason we had you come on today, but first of all, people probably recognize you. You've been an actor for over 30 years now. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, people know you mostly nowadays for Mindhunter.
Well, that was my last series, and the show that I did for Netflix that was pretty successful. So yeah, a lot of people do remember that.
It seems like everybody knows you, you from that. You were in Fight Club. I
was.
A successful career. But the reason we wanted you on the show today is we're talking about Masters boxing. And talking to you the other day, you are a Masters boxing champion, 2011 Golden Gloves Masters champion in New York.
Well, thank you, Jason. You know, I was doing a television show for FX called Lights Out, and it was about a retired professional boxer.
It's an awesome show.
Oh, that's nice of you to
say. I remember that show. Yeah.
And you
Peter
know,
Lights Out Leary. Right?
I was Lights Leary, that's right.
Yeah.
And I was doing a lot of training. You know, I had the privilege of a long friendship with a great boxing trainer named Teddy Atlas, who has, of course, trained many world champions and has an encyclopedic knowledge of the sport. And I had played him in a film about Mike Tyson for HBO. And so I played Teddy, and I got to know Teddy. And so Teddy worked with me a little bit in the gym for the pilot. And then after that, I started working with another great trainer named Mark Breland, whom a lot of our listeners will, of course, remember as one of the trainers of Deontay Wilder. As a matter of fact, the guy who threw in the towel, do you know what I mean, to try to save Deontay from that pummeling he was receiving from Tyson Fury. But Mark Breland was an Olympic gold medalist. Mark Breland was a 2-time world champion, a 5-time New York Golden Gloves champion, and with 140 victories and only 1 defeat. And he's widely considered the greatest amateur boxer of all time, and an accomplished professional. So, I was training with Mark and at Gleasons Gym in Brooklyn. And he said to me, hey, there's a Masters tournament coming up, and, we think you could do well. And I just have to say, it was really one of the greatest experiences that I ever had. And, you learn so much about yourself, and, just, having to deal with those emotions, of even though it's an amateur bout, you're still walking out there in front of, all your friends and, people, and and you've trained for it. And I had a very experienced boxer as my opponent, very talented guy from Germany. And, I managed to win a decision, which I felt really good about. But I'll tell you, it's one of the things that I simply wouldn't trade. One of the experiences that I've had in my life that I wouldn't trade for anything. And for our listeners out there who may be considering, lacing them up, and I was well into my 40s at the time. That's the wonderful thing about the Masters division of USA Boxing is there's not an age limit. They will match you with somebody of your weight class, of your approximate age, and I just can't say enough about how valuable that kind of an experience can be.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, you're in here like 3 days a week boxing, so you're still boxing. So obviously that that did something for you. Boxing, you not only did you do the Golden Gloves, but now you're working out, you're boxing on a regular basis.
Well, use it or lose it. I'm in my 50s now, but I like getting in there, and moving around with some of the younger guys. You kind of, test yourself. And look, some of them are really good. You know what I mean? But they work with you. Do you know what I mean? And that's the other thing about amateur boxing that I think is worth mentioning. I know that's something that's come up previously on the cut, is the camaraderie. It's a very different sport than it is in the professional ranks. In the professional ranks, there's a lot of corruption. Do you know what I mean, with the sanctioning bodies, and you know what I mean. It's a very dangerous game. But with the amateurs, I think that there's just a different spirit about it. There's a different feeling. These young people, they get in there and they, they gain discipline and they gain confidence and courage, and they take those qualities and they apply it out in their lives. You know what I mean? And in whatever career they finally choose, those skills come with them and help them. So you really grow tremendously through the sport, and that's why I try to continue to do it.
It's a different experience from an athletic standpoint. My experience in sports was get fired up, get to a point where my nerves and energy were high, right? And in boxing, what I had to learn was I had to be calm and really get in more of a Zen mode, if you will, to participate and even have a chance of being good or having a good round.
Your heart rate's like 170 before you even walk into the ring.
It's a wild
when people are watching, and so definitely you got to learn how to manage that.
Yeah, and I love that. It helped me so much in life. I started when I was 48 years old, and it's really something that has changed for the better a lot of things about my life, and physical and then just strength and confidence. But yeah, it's wild. And then the camaraderie of sparring. We've all been in the ring. I haven't had the pleasure of punching you yet, Holt, but I'm looking forward to it.
I'm sure that you will, and I look forward to that.
And so, but we've done this, and when you get out of the ring, and Mike comes up and says, Joe, have you thought about this? Have you done this? And everyone's helping each other, and you leave with this sense of humility and accomplishment that's just different than anything I've experienced.
Sometimes you're dizzy too, but that's
A little bit. But usually, one thing that's interesting about USA Boxing, I will say, is the stats on injury and concussion are so low comparative to any other sport, contact sport specifically. It's a fraction of injuries in boxing, and knock on wood, I don't, my joints don't hurt. I don't have strains. The exercises we do and what I do, I think it is the fountain of youth.
I have a bulging disc in my neck, and it's been it's been fine. No, and I've managed to do all that, sparring and training, and every once in a while, I'll have a sore neck, but overall, I think it's helped my neck because a lot of absorbing a punch is your neck muscles and being strong in that area. So, I mean, I have that issue, and it's been fine for me.
I can only speak to the Gregory boxing culture. Holt, maybe you can speak to Gleasons. That's a world famous gym in New York. Culture is similar, and I think it's just part of boxing. You said amateur is different. I agree. The culture in Gleasons, same. That helpful, people, kind in the sense of wanting to share their experience and make you better when you're in the gym. Is that something that you found?
Well, it's a really interesting gym. It has a long history. You do get a lot of pros. A lot of world champions. A lot of amateur champions. So there are some great fighters that have trained there. Over the years, legendary guys. But I did feel that way. As I said, I went there and I had followed Mark Breland's career, as an amateur and as a professional, and I just walked into the gym and I said, Mr. Breland, I think you were a great fighter. He was an outside fighter, with long arms. If you remember a little bit about Mark's style, and I thought that would be a good style for me too. And I just thought he would be a great trainer. I had a great experience working with him and boxing with a lot of thank you, a lot of a lot of young Golden Gloves champions, and there were days that there's a guy who was fighting out of Gleasons in those days named Earl Newman, who was a multiple heavyweight champion in the New York Golden Gloves and is now a professional with a very fine record. And, I remember one time he kept catching me with sort of kind of a left hooks to the body that were hitting me in the ribs. And the adrenaline's pumping. You're in the ring. You're trying to stay calm. You're trying to do the things that you were trained to do. But he kept catching me with the same shot in the same spot. You know what I mean? Over and over and over. And I wasn't really feeling it at the time. Because you don't let yourself go to that place. And after our sparring session, we ride subway trains in New York City, and Gleasons Gym was formerly in Manhattan, near Madison Square Garden. But back in the late '80s, I guess, early '90s, it moved to Brooklyn, New York, where it is now. And so I would take the train from my apartment in Manhattan to Gleasons. So I get back on the train to go back home, and I think, wow, man, well, I thought I did pretty well in there with Earl, considering he's such a talented prospect, and it wasn't until the train arrived at my stop and I went to stand up that I crumpled over, and I was like, "Oh my God, I think my ribs might be broken." It was like 3 weeks before I could get back in there because I was so tender in that one spot. So you will pay a little bit of a price sometimes. Depending on who you're in there with. But that's part of it, and you're absolutely right that in the amateurs, USA Boxing, it's a fine organization. They really put safety first. They're very conscious of that. They'll give an 8 count. They'll stop about. You know what I mean? If a fighter's taking too much punishment, do you know what I mean? They're just the referees are very conscientious. They're not going to let somebody get hurt. And that's why the sport is much safer than people who aren't involved with it might understand. Parents out there who might have reservations about putting their son or daughter, in a boxing program. What I would say to them is, if they're in the right gym, and certainly Gregory Boxing is an example of that. I've worked out with some of these young kids that we have here. Do you know what I mean? Just fine athletes. Of both sexes, and they're not going to get hurt. What they're going to do, though, is that they're going to gain all those things that you're talking about: the confidence, the discipline. You know what I mean? The ability to remain calm under pressure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And stay relaxed and stay focused. And those qualities are useful in many different aspects of life.
And not just boxing. Those are qualities that you want kids and even adults, but kids especially to carry on through their whole life.
I think boxing too, if I might add, is very athletic. So what you do in boxing will translate if you're a kid or you like playing other sports. The way you move boxing, you're using your shoulder and your knees. The way you move laterally will translate into any sport you like, I think too. It's one thing about boxing, it's very athletic. Even compared to something like Muay Thai, I feel boxers are. If you're a good boxer, you're a good athlete.
Wayne says it all the time. Boxing will make you a better athlete with the footwork and the movement, hand-eye coordinate, with everything, no matter what sport. Baseball, it doesn't matter.
That's where I
matter.
say fountain of youth. For folks in this conversation about masters boxing, 35 and older, it's the fountain of youth. It's the best cardio. It's really low impact unless you're heaving punches. You get a great burn and workout, and you're learning an art. The science, the sweet science of boxing. It's the best. It's the best. It's the reason I'm the director of business development and opened a gym in Lombard in a pandemic. Right?
Yeah,
Because it's the best.
Yeah, I think you had a screw loose before you started boxing. That's it.
I think you loosened a couple up, Mike.
And listen, for guys out there that are listening to the podcast today, who maybe want to, drop a few pounds. Sometimes, you get over 40 and you start to notice, you know what I mean, that you're carrying a little extra weight that you weren't carrying in your 20s. Well, there's no faster route, right, to getting slim and trim, than getting in the boxing gym. Skipping rope, getting in, doing some sparring, working out on the pads and the bags, doing those sit-ups, doing that whole boxing workout. You'll start to see changes in your physique. You'll start to see changes in your endurance, and your cardiovascular, everything, and also mentally and emotionally, psychologically. You leave the gym after a great workout, and it's what you said. You have that sense of accomplishment. You never regret having gone to the gym and had a good workout. You always feel better about it.
Yeah, I've never regretted a workout. Have you? No. Never regretted?
No.
There's
an unlimited amount of success stories here too, right? I mean, you see people walk in on day one, and then you see them a few months later, and I see it with the kids too, how they just are walking around very confident. They feel good about themselves, and then a master's boxer, like you said, Holt, you walk in heavy, never done it before, and you're like, oh man, where has this been my whole life? I don't have to lift weights. I'm not running on the treadmill. I'm getting my cardio in. I'm sweating like crazy. Mike's probably the world's greatest sweater.
This is fake news.
Guys,
This is fake news.
Guys leave sweat angels everywhere. But it's great, and people are discovering it. Sometimes they're discovering it much older, much further along in life. Like, where was this at? They, when they come in here, they didn't know that this is what a boxing gym looks like. And parents, especially, they walk in. They said, "This is a boxing gym," and then they see the confidence and everything their kids are experiencing, and all the lessons they're getting that will carry on, not just in sports, but in life. So it's incredible. So, Holt, I have a question for you. If you were to go back and talk to 20-year-old Holt, what would your advice be? Whether it be in boxing or just in life, what would you tell 20-year-old Holt?
That's such a great question, and I think that over the years, I've learned humility, and to really be conscientious about the things that I do. it's my acting, you know, and you know, I'm more successful now in my 50s than I ever was at any time previously in my career, and I think that that's in part because you know you live life, you gain experience, you gain wisdom, hopefully, and you know, and that's what I would say to a younger me. I would say, um, try to identify the things that are really important to you and pursue those things. You know, I've always thought that young people have a particular gift when they have a clear sense of what they want to do with their lives. You know, I knew that I wanted to be an actor, you know, from an early age, and so I pursued that, but sometimes you meet young people who don't have that clarity. You know that they're not sure exactly, you know, what they want to be, so they kick around and they do different things, and you know, and so I would say, you know, it's really important to choose something that you're passionate about, something that you enjoy, and really commit to that, because you know, no matter what career you choose, it's a competitive marketplace out there in every business, and so if you're gonna be successful, you're gonna have to put the work in, and you're gonna have to really, you know, really try and really focus and really, you know, you know, 20-year-old Holt, you know, was, you know, you know, just, you know, you know, I didn't have the same kind of discipline. I didn't have the same kind of focus, so, you know, I wasted time that I don't waste anymore in my life. You know, every moment is precious, so I try to fill it with something worthwhile.
Mike, similar question for you, but my question for you would be, if you can go back and talk to 20-year-old Mike Kenny, would you advise him not to be a Bears fan?
Well, first of all, before I answer that question, I have a feeling Holt has done this before. I thought I was being interviewed, or I thought I was doing okay until he got here. So to answer your question,
what would you tell 20-year-old Mike?
Well, you have to go back till I was 5 to tell myself, and then yes, definitely save a lot of heartache.
Yeah.
If I can go back and talk to 20-year-old Mike Kenny, I'd just say stop talking. You're an idiot. You think you know everything. You don't know anything. Pick a lane. Don't stop working. And like Holt said, quit wasting time. Funny thing, you feel like you can't learn wisdom. You gain it. So I think I'm wise now. But if we do this again in 20 years and you say, Mike, what would you say to 42-year-old Mike Kenny? I feel like I'd say something very similar. So I just think you know, a lot of what you said. I had no direction. A little discipline goes a long way. If I got into boxing, you know, fight sports, and I was 20, this is just a hobby. This is something amateur. I have no delusions of grandeur. But back then, you know, I don't know how good of an athlete I could have been, or how far you could have taken it. And then also, it was, you know, opportunities I had academically or career paths, you know, do a lot differently. So I just hope I've gained some wisdom from that.
Joe, anything you want to add? Anything you didn't mention? You mentioned the websites and everything as far as the Masters boxing.
I'll just say in the same discipline in my younger life would have changed things for the better. What I've learned now and things because of age really, and feeling like I'm forced to I want to be healthy. I feel better if I'm exercising than if I don't, right? So that if I was doing that through my 20s, what my life would have been like if I was involved in the, you know, martial arts or boxing, and out of, you know, all the stupid stuff that I wasted time on, what would my life be like? So it's great stuff, great question. So GregoryBoxing.com. We have 2 locations here in Des Plaines and then Lombard. Our Masters camp starts this coming Tuesday, and that is at 7:30 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 a.m. on Saturdays. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us, and it's been fun.
Fantastic. Before we completely wrap up, Holt, what are you working on now? You're in Chicago for a few months. What are you working on right now?
Thank you, Jason. I have a new television show. It's for AMC. It's called 61st Street. it's going to be a really good show. And I play a Chicago police officer, and I have had the privilege of gaining a lot of insights from our friend Jason Brandstetter, and some other Chicago police that have really helped me to try to find some authenticity in the character, and and learn more about what the proper procedures are, and the philosophy. We're living in a political moment right now where there is a lot of controversy surrounding law enforcement, and obviously we're in the middle of the Derek Chauvin trial in Minneapolis, and that's getting international attention. But I have to say that I've been here in Chicago now, and had an opportunity to spend a lot of time with some Chicago cops, and Jason is one of them. He's become a friend. So have certain other guys that I've met, and it's just been a great experience. I think it's going to be a very good show. I would encourage people to check it out. It's called 61st Street. I'm not sure exactly when it will launch, but I think there's a chance that the first season of the show could launch as early as this fall. So if it does, I'll come back on the podcast and give it a plug.
That'd be awesome.
Nice.
Listen, Mike, thank you very much for
Thank
showing
you.
up there. I appreciate it.
It's an honor.
Holt, thank you so much. I think we were all happy when you walked in the door.
I came straight from the
Yeah,
set.
yeah.
I'm still in my costume. I wouldn't let him. I said, I'm not changing. I'm wearing my costume. I'm getting in my car, and I'm coming to do the podcast. So I'm glad I made it.
Thank you so much. Man behind the scenes, Steve Bateman, thank you. My co-host today, Joe Phalen, thank you very much. You can find the brand on Facebook or go to gregoryboxing.com for any information. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, YouTube.com/Gregory Boxing, for all of our videos and podcasts. You can also find us on Spotify, the brand on Spotify. Thank you for watching. Thank you to our entire Gregory Boxing family. I'll be back next week, 7 p.m. Central, with our guest Wayne Gregory talking about boxing gear. And I will see everybody then on the brand.